Game over, man. Game over. Johnny.
You're gonna need a big approach. Why so serious? Roll out.
I am Iron Man.
This is a tasty burger.
Welcome to the In Session Film Podcast.
Welcome to episode 576 for March 11th, 2024, and I'm JD Duran. Mr. Cassidy could not be here this week. He is not feeling well. However, I am joined by the wonderful, the awesome, the great Brian Rowe. Brian, welcome back to the show, my friend.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Thanks for being here. Of course, we are here to celebrate and also talk about those pesky Oscars that took place last night as we are recording this, of course, which is partially why Brian is here. We have him here mostly because we love him, but also he knows the Academy Awards, it turns out. He has a whole YouTube channel dedicated to it, which is awesome. I urge everyone to go and check that out. And of course, he does great awards work for us at InSessionFilm.com. So, Brian, as we get into this, I know there are at least a few categories that you're going to be extremely excited about. And we'll get to that here shortly. But first, what did you think about the ceremony on the whole?
I was pretty happy with it. I feel like the last two ceremonies have been pretty great. I really did not like that one in 2022. And it wasn't just the slap incident. It just didn't have a good flow. There were so many problems. And so last year I was much happier. And once again, this year's ceremony, I thought had a really good rhythm to it. It was funny. The I'm Just Ken musical number brought the house down.
Yeah.
And it never felt over long. It was only, 3 hours and 10, 3 hours 20. It didn't go crazy long, which I was very happy with.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, in terms of the wins, I was pretty thrilled. I was really happy with the win.
Yeah, I was as well. And I think to some degree, I mean, we knew what a lot of the winners were going to be. Now, there were a few surprises, which we'll get to for sure. But coming into the Oscars, I mean, even just looking back at the nominations, I thought it was one of the better overall crops of nominees we've had. Especially with Best Picture. We've talked about that in recent weeks. I think it's one of the best picture lineups we've had. And so I was very excited to, of course, experience and celebrate the winners. As far as the show goes, it's Jimmy Kimmel coming back. We know what to expect from Jimmy Kimmel to some degree. I will admit, I do think this is one of, or at least regarding his opening monologue, I thought it was one of his weaker efforts. I still think it was fine, but it wasn't his best work, or at least I certainly didn't respond to it as much as I have previously. But the one thing that I really loved about Jimmy Kimmel, and I've been salivating for this for a long time, and I think partially it comes off the heels of him doing this so many times now that he's certainly learned. And also we're preparing, the Oscars that is preparing to add more categories. So the show is only going to get longer in the near future. So what I really loved about this ceremony, as far as the show goes itself and the flow of it, to your point there, you get the opening monologue, which is 20 minutes or so. After that, though, it was pretty much about the show itself. All of those previous, unnecessary gags and comedic bits that we would get, I feel like is mostly gone in this year's show. And even when we do get those other comedic bits, it's heavily tethered to the next category that we're about to experience, or it's directly involving the presenters on stage. So I do love how it was choreographed in that regard. And even those extra comedic bits, they didn't overextend their welcome, and they were pretty funny. Like the John Cena bit, I thought was hysterical. I quite love that one as well. The Steven Spielberg gag, I thought was awesome as well. I love that for all of the great work he's given us over the years. He doesn't take himself too seriously at these award shows. Anyway, it's really fantastic. So Yeah, I thought the show it kept to the main thing. You get the opening monologue, and after that, it was let's get rid of all of the filler, all of the fluff that we don't need. We are no longer going to we're leaving the stage and going to a movie theater. We're not doing those gags anymore. Like we've stripped all of that out, and it's about the craftsmen and the performers and the people that we need to be celebrating. So I might not have loved the opening monologue comparatively, but I appreciate that Kimmel kept it to the main thing, and I thought he did a great job with that.
Yeah, Jimmy Kimmel is a pretty safe host. Like he's not going to get us into too much trouble. Like in those, the opening monologue. I do agree with you. It wasn't as funny this year, and he kept asking like, "So how are we doing? How's it going?"
Yeah,
and I'm like, that doesn't sing confidence to me. I was like,
yeah,
no, like come out, like give us a gag, and then move on. But yeah, he's always been fine, and he did a fine job. And yeah, I agree. It's like after the monologue, we were right into the first awards, Best Supporting Actress, and we were off and running. And there weren't these like long comedy bits like thrown in, and like we didn't have a lot of that this year. Like there were some banter, most of which I enjoyed.
I agree.
Like Emily Blunt and Ryan Gosling, the Barbenheimer fight was really great. I really enjoyed that. Like they had some good like one-liners there. And I also love that Spielberg moment. He is so funny. Like he has great comic timing.
He does.
Like it was like perfect with the cut to him and him doing this at the camp. Like it felt like it was rehearsed. Like I'm assuming that just happened in the moment, right? He didn't rehearse that, but it looked really great.
I don't know. I mean, I assume they do rehearsals. I don't know if
I know they do rehearsals. But I like for those kind of things. Like is Spielberg there on Saturday rehearsing that? I
don't think so. I agree with you. There's no way. So like he just naturally did a great job with it. So what we're saying is, when is the Steven Spielberg comedy coming? That's what we want to know.
Like in the last 40 years, someone should have cast him in like a really fun comedic role. I mean, I think he's in the Blues Brothers for a scene, like in a cameo, but that's about it.
They should do him and Scorsese as a road buddy movie, because Scorsese is also really funny in those TikTok videos. Like they should just pair up. I would watch it. Yeah, absolutely.
Spielberg's also in Austin Powers and Goldmember at the beginning. Remember the long scene? Like he's funny. Like someone give him like a good supporting role, like where he's playing someone else. In a comedy, that'd be really
it'd be
cool.
great. Yeah, absolutely. But yeah, no, I loved that moment, and I agree with you. The banter throughout I thought was really great, and again, it was concise enough. It didn't overly extend itself, and it was funny, and it tethered to what was happening next. So like it didn't feel like it was a distraction. Like the Mulaney bit, for example, he gets on stage and he essentially tells us everything that is weird about Field of Dreams, a movie that I still love, but he does make a lot of great points, but it all pertains to what he's there for. So like, I thought it was not only a great audition for him to host next year, but a great moment that offers some levity that makes sense for the moment, for what he's presenting.
Yeah, I think I was in the bathroom for that part. I didn't see Mulaney.
No? Oh, have you gone back to see it?
No, is it? I saw like the main wins are on YouTube. I haven't seen some of the other stuff.
I would urge you to go and watch it. He presented Best Sound.
Okay.
And
I saw the Zone of Interest win, but I think I missed his intro.
Yeah, it was really great. I guess to quickly recap, he gets on there and essentially opens with, without sound, we don't get these amazing moments of dialogue. And he spouts off a few iconic lines and then mentions one in Field of Dreams, if you build it, they will come. And then he takes that and then starts to go on this, it's seemingly a little long. It's like 2 minutes of him talking about Field of Dreams and why it's narratively just kind of a weird movie when you break it down. But it's John Mulaney, so like
what does that have to do with sound?
Well, he's taking the idea of you get these great moments because of sound, I guess, is the root of the joke. And then he deconstructs the movie to articulate why it's a weird movie. It was a funny little bit, but I promise in context, it makes sense.
Okay.
But it was really great. And as a lot of people noted on social media, it was a fantastic audition for him to host. And
He would be a good host. I like him.
I would not oppose to it given what that was last night. But, and again, it wasn't something completely distracting from what we were there to see. And so many previous shows have done that, is essentially my point. Like, I don't care to see these side comedic gags that are, hit or miss in terms of the comedy and also have nothing to do with what we're there for. And they've done a great job in recent years of stripping that back and just keeping it about the main thing. And that's why we can have an Oscars in a little over 3 hours.
Right.
And
you're worried about them adding best casting. Like, that's not going to add another 20 minutes. Like, they'll figure out a way. They can, when they come out with like 2 presenters and they do 2 or 3 categories, just boom, boom, boom. Like, they can get through those pretty fast. So I'm not worried about adding best casting or best stunts, which I feel like
I was going to say, like, we're adding 1 category soon, but I'm hoping 2. And who knows, maybe
I mean, that's what
another
Blunt and Gosling kind of presented last night was the stunts and kind of a montage there. So I'm like, I feel like that's in the next 3 to 5 years. Like, they're going to add.
It feels like it's
too.
coming. Absolutely. Okay, so that was the ceremony itself. Shall we talk about some of these winners here?
Okay.
We, of course, we could talk Best Picture. I don't know if we need to. I think we need to start with Best Actress. That's what everyone is talking about. Emma Stone, Lily Gladstone. I feel like everyone, at least listeners of our show, know the pedestal I'm about to hop on. And I know how you feel about this category as well. I'm very excited to hear what you thought about Best Actress and how that unfolded.
That for me was the win of the night. I know a lot of people were for Lily Gladstone, and I understand that. But for me, the performance of the year was Emma Stone in Poor Things. I have felt that since September when I saw that movie at the Telluride Film Festival. Sure. She just knocked me out in that movie, and I said that's probably going to be the winner. And then she was kind of steamrolling there for a while when she won a Critics' Choice and then a BAFTA, and then Gladstone won at SAG. And I felt like everyone just abandoned Emma Stone. And I was like, I don't know, because of just this one win for Gladstone at SAG, I didn't think it was over. There have been people who have won SAG before in Best Actress in recent years who did not win the Oscar. Viola Davis for Ma Rainey's Black Bottom, and Glenn Close for The Wife. So just winning a prize at SAG does not guarantee you the Oscar. I mean, it helps by a lot. I just felt like the factors that helped Michelle Yeoh last year after she won SAG and went on to win the Oscar, I felt like the factors this year were different. I'm going to make a video. I probably have like 10 to 12 reasons like why this happened. I felt confident even before Poor Things won those 3 prizes earlier in the show. I was like, I think it's going to be Emma Stone. I think people are putting way too much weight on the SAG win for Gladstone. I just felt like Killers of the Flower Moon was just too weak of a movie. It just had not performed well all season. It's not Everything Everywhere all at once. Like, I don't think there's passion there. So that was a huge moment because I was like one of the very few people to predict Emma Stone. And when it happened, I was very thrilled and I loved her speech. I loved the whole presentation. Like Sally Field talking to Emma Stone. Sally Field, a 2-time Oscar winner herself. That was just really cool. That's when I knew it was happening. I was like, Sally Field is talking to her. Like, this is going to happen.
Yeah.
And I mean, I know people are like, oh, she already has an Oscar. She won for La La Land and blah, blah, blah. But I just thought the power of her performance. I was like, if there's one performance of 2023 that deserves an Oscar, it's that one. So I'm very happy.
Yeah, I am as well. And I guess that's another element of the ceremony we didn't really talk about, but the way they presented the acting categories this year, bringing that format back, I thought was fantastic. At least I personally loved it. I know they didn't play the clips in that rubbed some people the wrong way, but personally, I don't always love the clips because for me, they play the conventional clip that I don't think represents the best of that performance. And there's something about the personal touch of having the previous winners come on stage that adds a poignancy to it that I thought was fantastic. Like, I loved that. I didn't really need the clips. I just, because you get that moment. Well, and we'll talk about the others, but like the Paul Giamatti, Nick Cage moment, which also went viral afterwards, I thought was fantastic. So like I just love those little touches throughout the ceremony. And so, that moment with Sally Field, I thought was fantastic. And as far as the win goes, I'm with you. I also predicted Emma Stone, partially because of your confidence and the way you articulated it in our predictions episode. I was like, I'm going with Brian. I'm sticking here. He makes a lot of great points. And, and it was also interesting because people were talking about how BAFTA went 0 for 8 on the big categories last year. And how does that influence this year's awards? And you did speak to that a little bit in our predictions episode as well. And so like, it is interesting how from year to year, like you look at all these things, you can talk about how these precursors might influence a voting body. And it's over the last few years, I think what we've come to realize is that each season is its own breathing thing. And you can lean on those stats to some degree, but I do love how it doesn't invoke necessarily an omniscient truth that, this is what it's going to be. And there were a few awards throughout the night. We'll certainly get to a few others that stick to that. And I'm with you. Like when it comes to Emma Stone itself, I know that the discourse has been extremely polarizing. And I
got some hate yesterday on Twitter. I was
I'm sure you did.
I said, you know what? Because I've been pretty, like for weeks, I've been all on board the Emma Stone train, but I know there's a lot of love for Gladstone's performance. Yeah. So I was like, let's not. And then yesterday morning, I said, you know what? Let's just do one. And I did this post that was like, look, Emma Stone deserves this and she should win. And that's who I'm rooting for.
Yeah. And
it got like 2,500 likes. But a lot of the comments, I looked once, I didn't really, a lot of the comments were like, screw you, man. Like this is not the side of history you want to be on. So I was like, yeah, if Gladstone wins, not going to be a good look, Brian. But I mean, Emma Stone won at the end of the day, so it's fine.
Yeah. I mean, and look, you're not alone. I saw a lot of tweets that were invoking the idea of Emma Stone being a worthy winner. And I understand why people really wanted Lily Gladstone to win. My thing when it comes to this, and you have heard me say this so often over the course of the last few weeks, and I've reiterated this for years now, the thing I loathe with a passion when it comes to the Oscars is the sports mentality of it. And that's what's driving so much of this discourse. And again, I understand it. Brian, I don't think you follow sports like I do, if I remember correctly.
No.
I am a massive sports fan. And look, when my team loses, Brian, I am also not happy. I also get angry. I don't necessarily tweet players or coaches. And I certainly don't tweet rival fans and say, you're on the wrong side of history, Brian. I don't do that. But a lot of people do. A lot of people do. When it comes to, if it's Michigan, Ohio State, or my Red Wings, whatever it is, like rival sports fans go at each other's throats all the time. It is the norm. It is part of what being a fan is. There's a reason they call sports fans fanatics. Like that's what they are. They're absolute lunatics, and they love their team with a passion. And that's what is breeding this discourse online. You can't be happy for Emma Stone because you're on Lily Gladstone's team and her team lost. Her team lost. So now I have to go out And I have to tweet my hatred for the rival team and especially go after those fans who, you know, and I know you're not doing this, but this is how they see it. You put out a tweet about Emma Stone and her win and how great it is. And they see that as you're attacking them and you're attacking their team and their players. And even though that is absolutely not your intention, but that's
I'm
how
not
people
trying to do that.
I know, absolutely you're not.
I'm just celebrating the performance I thought was worthy of winning.
That's
all I'm doing.
What this is supposed to be. And I understand that the Oscars at its core is a competition. But we're talking about art that doesn't have a vindictive sports mentality driving it. And the thing that I hated most about what happened last night as a result of this sports mentality is that, you know, not only do you get the vitriol, but Emma Stone in the moment could not celebrate it with sincerity. The moment her name is called, and you see it all over her face, she is scared out of her mind. It's like she knows instantly. Shocked. It's like she knows instantly there's going to be vitriol, and that I am going to be detested for this win and for defeating Lily Gladstone. I think that's partially why at SAG when Lily wins and you see her so ecstatic, it's like, oh, thank God I'm in the clear. And then she wins the Oscar, and I think she's immediately overwhelmed with fear of what her reputation might turn into as a result of this. And it was immediate. It was immediate in the discourse. People going after her, calling this one of the worst wins and ugly win. The Academy's cooked. All of those.
Really? I haven't seen that.
Oh my gosh, Brian.
Who possibly could call that one of the worst wins? I mean, she's incredible in that movie.
Brian, I'm going to give you my login, the In-Session Film log, and I'll let you just scroll through my feed. So you can, like, I'm envious that you are not seeing any of this. But it was everywhere. And it was saddening to me because this is supposed to be a celebration. And Lily Gladstone is great in Killers of the Flower. If she would have won, I would have loved it. And that's why I bring up the whole sports mentality thing to say that it's disheartening because of what it's turned into. And I would have, I was championing both performances. If Lily would have won, I would have also been thrilled for her. I would have loved it. It would have been a deserved win as far as I'm concerned. And Emma, but I feel the same way about Emma Stone. Like, she was my personal winner at the In-Session Film Awards as well. I agree with you. I think she gives the best actress performance of the year. And while they're two very different performances, and again, I hate that we have to bring this up because it has nothing to do with math. It has nothing to do with screen time, because that was a talking point today for some reason. But it has everything to do with the physical performance, the emotional evolution of the character. It is incredible what she does with that performance, given the transformation of the character you see throughout the film. It is extraordinary what she is having to do to give that character credence. And from two very different angles, right? Because there's the mental side of it where she's essentially a child. She's a toddler, and she has to invoke that and give it credence. And then there's the physicality of it, which is remarkable. Like how she tethers those things together. It's a great performance. It's a louder performance. Maybe that's more, quote unquote, more Oscar-y, but I think it doesn't undermine the work that she's doing in that film. And I wish that we could celebrate the purity of that instead of getting bogged down in the sports mentality of it all. But unfortunately, until we sell enough T-shirts, Brian, that we shouldn't turn art into sports.
Yeah. I slightly disagree with you in that Emma Stone, when her name was announced, she thought, oh my God, I'm going to be eviscerated for this. I do think she was just genuinely shocked because she lost at SAG and it was not guaranteed. And, she has won before. So I bet there was thinking in her mind, it's probably going to go to Gladstone, and I need to be prepared for that. And so when they said her name, I didn't read that as, oh my God, the world's going to hate me. I read it as like, oh my God, I won. And she's worried about her dress.
Well,
So
there
there's
was
that going
that.
on.
There was the dress element was certainly part of it. And look, to be fair, you might be right. And again, that's not me. That's necessarily pulling that interpretation. That was an immediate reaction I saw online when that moment happened. And you saw the clip everywhere today of that immediate win and the shock on her face. And it could be that. If I'm looking at it from a pure perspective, you're probably right. It's just she didn't expect to win since Lily won SAG. But on the same token, if she is aware of any of this discourse, which she might be, I don't know, then I could understand her having that reaction, though.
It was a much more passionate speech than the first one for La La Land in 2017. Remember that speech? She just kind of went up and said,
Yeah.
it felt kind of rehearsed. She knew she was winning for that one 7 years ago.
Sure.
And this one was a bit all over the place, and I liked that about it. It wasn't just like rehearsed down to the sentence. It was just kind of like,
Yeah, no. Same thing with Devine Joy Randolph as well, right? Like she tosses away whatever was written there, which is different than any other speech she gave.
Yeah, she finally just spoke from the heart.
Spoke from the heart and let those emotions go, which again, I think some of that is born out of, and forgive me, I can't remember the actress that spoke to her during the presentation element of it. But if you recall, like there was a line about the glasses she wears in the film, and that it was her grandma's
Lupita
glasses.
Nyong'o.
Yeah, Lupita Nyong'o. And she speaks to that, and there's a cut to her. And again, this is before the award is announced, and she's already tearing up.
Yeah.
So then she wins. She's immediately emotional. So like I do think Lupita planted the seeds there for that emotion to come to the surface in this organic, natural way that was beautiful. And so when she gets on stage, she's like, I'm just riding this wave. Like, I'm not even going to read anything I had prepared. And she just speaks from the heart, and it's absolutely gorgeous. So like, that's another reason why, again, clips be damned. Like, I love that. Like, you get that moment from Devine Randolph because of this new format, or I guess bringing back that specific format.
Yeah, I mean, just thinking back to last night, I'm just happy that there was some kind of a race in Best Actress, because the other three acting categories, as great as all three of those wins are, it was kind of dull. You're just sitting there waiting.
Yeah.
Like 5 people are talking to the nominees, and you're like, it's going to be Robert Downey Jr.
And
What are we doing?
know. We know.
I like when there's, last year, supporting actor was the only sure thing last year. In the other 3 categories, there was a race of at least 2 people.
Sure.
And I missed that part a little bit this year. It was really just actress. Like, thank God, in a way, Gladstone won at SAG, so we had something to talk about and look forward to, and be like, oh, maybe this could happen, that could happen. So there was that, like the only suspense in the top 8 categories, as it turned out.
Yeah, absolutely. But yeah, I guess my last point on Best Actress, and then we can move on, as we've talked this to death, it feels like. But I just hope that one day we can get to a point where it is about celebrating these performers and these craftsmen. And again, I'm not, even if you don't have to agree with the winners. I'm not saying that everyone has to champion Emma Stone. I mean, you can be disappointed that Lily Gladstone won. There's a difference, a huge difference between being disappointed that your favorite lost and then fueling the flames of the vitriol in the discourse and actively going after people that are celebrating. And again, I think that is an important distinction, because a lot of people have gone out there to express their disappointment, and that Lily Gladstone is, gives one of the best performances of the year and maybe of the decade so far. And if that's how you feel, and she is really great. I don't disagree with any of those sentiments, but I hope that we can remember the Oscars is about celebration. And then the other thing too, that is important to remember, is that the Oscars are not the be all end all in terms of legacy. How many iconic performances, films, directors have never won an Oscar or been nominated for an Oscar. You can go throughout the decades and list it. That's an endless list. So Lily Gladstone's performance in that film, even if she doesn't win, is going to be a performance that lives on. And that's fine. Like, that's perfectly okay. Like, Midnight Special is my favorite film of 2016. Did not sniff the Oscars. I still think that is the best film of that year. And that might not carry the same reputation as a Taxi Driver or whatever, But my point is to say, like, they don't have to win Oscars to have a legacy. Many of them don't. Citizen Kane did not win the Oscar for Best Picture, and
How Green Was My Valley did.
Exactly. But Citizen Kane is considered to be the best film ever made by many, or in the top 5, in the top 10 of all time. So, like, the Oscars do matter. They're important for sure, especially for smaller films and younger performers. But let's put things into context. It's okay. Lily will get more opportunities because of her being nominated here, and we can look forward to that.
Yeah, she has a new show. I think it's premiering on Hulu in April, like a new series that she's like a cop or something. It looked really, there was an ad for it. It looked really good. And yeah, I'm like, come on, someone give her a really fantastic lead role in a movie in the next couple years that brings her back and maybe gives her a win. I would be all for that. I think she is fantastic. I do think in like 10 years time, like everyone will have forgotten about Gladstone versus Stone. And when they're looking at like who won in 2024, I just think that Emma Stone win for Best Actress in Poor Things is going to age very well. And decades from now, people will be like, oh, well, obviously, that was the winner.
I hope you're right. The only reason I guess I would push back on that slightly is that we all still very much remember La La Land and Moonlight. And that is approaching 10 years. That's very
well. That
close
was a little different.
That
was kind of extreme
because of how it ended. But the vitriol leading up to that moment is still very much remembered. That was a heated debate leading up to that moment.
Right.
So, and again, that's approaching 10 years. Now you're right. In 20, 30, 40 years down the road, probably not nearly as much. But I still think this race, and again, the vitriol especially, I think that will linger for at least a decade.
Oh my God, I hope not.
I do.
Let it go, people. Let it go.
I agree with that. I agree with that. But but again, that's why I also come back to sports, because in these heated sports rivalries, especially when you lose, like my Red Wings lost to the Pittsburgh Penguins in the Stanley Cup Finals in 2009. Do I remember everything about that series? You're damn right I do. Absolutely. I remember every little detail about that series because I was viscerally upset about it. We lost in the Cup Finals to a rival.
There will be a few people in 5 years who are just like, God, Gladstone, why didn't it happen? But the majority of people will move on.
You're
a year from now,
than me.
A year from now, we'll have another Oscars Best Actress race, and we'll be on to other things.
I hope that you're right. I really do. I don't. Maybe it's the La La Land, Moonlight, and every year it feels like we get some of this. So I can't help but feel cynical about it because of the digital world that we live in now. I truly, truly hope that you're right. But until I see that sports mentality dissipate, I think that cynicism will still have a deep-rooted hold in me. But I hope so. I hope so.
I feel like if people are really upset about that Emma Stone win, imagine like if Cillian Murphy had won everything and then they gave Best Actor at the Oscars to Bradley Cooper. Imagine what that discourse would have been. There could have been really horrible outcomes here in a variety of categories that we didn't get. So if Emma Stone is what people are really pissed about, it's like could have been much worse for a lot of people.
I mean, I agree, and that's the other thing that's maybe a little weird. And I know we're kind of stuck on this, and we want to talk about more things, but it's such a I don't. Maybe you just don't spend as much time online, and God bless you if that is the case.
I mean,
But because of my job, like I'm online all the time, constantly. At least when I'm at work, when I'm at home, thankfully I can turn it all off and be with my kids. But like I see it all the time, and I would say the heat from this race, this Best Actress race, is the worst it's been since La La Land, Moonlight. I firmly believe that, and I've seen it, I feel it. It was ugly, and last night wasn't pretty if you were browsing the old Twitter sphere.
Yeah,
Um,
I mean, I posted about Emma Stone a lot last night. I wasn't looking around like, okay, what's everyone saying about that loss for Gladstone? I wasn't really looking, so I don't know if people were just really really upset for hours and hours.
I am going to go to the Brian Rowe School of Social Media because my God,
I didn't see a lot. I saw disappointment. That's all I saw.
yeah,
I didn't see hate.
oh boy, yeah.
I mean,
Well,
what are you gonna do? It's
yeah.
move on.
God bless you. Yeah. I hope that people do. We'll see. We'll see how
Emma
it plays
Stone
out.
is going to be just fine.
Yeah, I agree.
Like, she'll be fine.
But to your point, and the last thing I guess I'll say on this is that, okay, you get the vitriol. And in some ways, I guess it's a little bit of like La La Land, Moonlight, if we're really going to bring it back to that, in the sense that, okay, so Moonlight wins. That's a great winner, and it's not as if you're taking away a win and giving it to something that is very clearly lesser than, like a Crash, for example. It's nothing like that. Like you're taking one win away and giving it to someone else that is equally as extraordinary. So like, yeah, in another 20 years, I still think that while maybe there will be some disappointment, people will remember that as being a great performance. So yeah, I'm with you in that regard with Emma Stone.
At the end of the day, I think the right person won. I love that performance. I love this Best Actress win. I think it's one of the best Best Actress Oscar wins we've had in the last couple decades. I am thrilled.
Yeah, I love it as well. I'm with you there. I love it as well. I would have been happy either way. Even though these were not races at all, I just want to quickly speak to Christopher Nolan and Oppenheimer. Love Christopher Nolan. Obviously, he's been nominated before. I probably would have. I can't remember who he was up against, or who was not even nominated for Best Director the year he did Dunkirk. I might have
won.
Okay, well then I
for Shape of Water.
Sure, and I love The Shape of Water, but I certainly would have given it to Nolan or in Dunkirk over that movie. Either way, it feels like he's been building to this for some time. And Oppenheimer, I think, is one of the best films of the 21st century, hands down. I think it is excellent, easily my favorite film of last year. And Nolan's direction was the achievement of the year. So very excited for those wins. Obviously not races, but still thrilled to see it finally happen for him.
I loved Steven Spielberg giving Christopher Nolan
and that too.
Director
Yeah, that
Oscar.
was great.
That was great. Like that was the perfect person to give him that trophy, because in some way Spielberg had to wait a long time to win. Like after Jaws in 75, he had to wait 18 years to make Schindler's List, and that was the movie that finally won him an Oscar, or 2 Oscars that night. And Christopher Nolan, like they could have given him screenplay for Inception, they could have given him director for Dunkirk, but they also kind of made him wait more than 20 years. I think he was worthy of an Oscar win for Memento in screenplay back in 2002.
Sure.
So it's been a while.
Yeah.
So that was the right person to give the trophy to Nolan. I like that moment.
Yeah, absolutely. And I do love, just because this happens, maybe I shouldn't even speak to it, but I do appreciate, and maybe I should, because it does happen often, right? Where you see these directors' performance, whatever the craft is, finally win for something that they don't really deserve, but it's been so long. Like we wonder if that's going to happen with Bradley Cooper at some point. Because
they give it to him for like screenplay, some random year. And that's it.
And that exactly, because like I'm not the biggest fan of The Departed. I think that is mid-tier Scorsese at best. but I understand why they wanted to give it to him, given his legacy and everything that kind of came before. And so they felt like that was the right time to reward him. I just don't think that was for nearly his best work. And obviously there are many more examples. And with Nolan, I'm just glad that, we're avoiding that notion. Like, truly deserved.
Yeah, like if they had
Yeah.
given Nolan an Oscar for the one movie he makes, maybe where he wasn't as deserving, but he lost 2 years ago, let's give him a trophy for this. I don't
Exactly.
like that. I don't like that when they make up for
Yeah,
a
when they
missed
make up,
win
yeah.
that they should have won for, and then 1 to 3 years later,
Mhm.
there's another opportunity. So they let's give it to them this time. And it's like, no, not for this. Like that
Yeah.
happens sometimes.
And
Not
there's
last
been
night.
and there's been some sentiment with that regarding Downey Jr. and his win for Oppenheimer. I don't necessarily agree. I've pushed back against that all season, but I've seen that notion thrown out with his performance. But yeah, I agree. At least with Nolan in the film itself, wholly deserved in every way. And it was his time. He was due. I was happy to see that.
Yeah, Downey Jr. I thought was absolutely Oscar worthy. He's great in Oppenheimer. My issue there was like I didn't think Downey Jr. was so good he should have swept the season. I didn't think it was that good to like win everywhere. Like I thought Mark Ruffalo in Poor Things was on another level. He was great in that. He should have won something. Like Downey Jr. didn't need to sweep, but him winning the Oscar, that's totally fine. He's very good in Oppenheimer.
And I'm surprised Ryan Gosling didn't win.
And Gosling.
Gosling could have won. Ruffalo, I absolutely agree with you there. And while Killers of the Flower Moon didn't get much recognition this season, it's clear that many awards bodies just didn't receive the film as well as some of these others. I mean, clearly it was received well enough to be nominated everywhere, but it didn't garner a ton of wins. I think De Niro gives one of his best performances in that film. I could have seen him also steal one of these wins somewhere. So I'm with you. Like it could have been more sporadic in terms of
that was weird. I mean, I think I claimed once that De Niro gave his best film performance in Killers of the Flower Moon since Casino in 1995. That's how much I loved his performance in the new Scorsese movie. And it's weird because he had to spend an entire award season constantly losing to someone whose name starts with Robert De.
Robert, yeah.
So he hears half of his name and then
and
down
then it's like, then it tailors out. Yeah.
I think at the Globes, the very first televised award ceremony, I think he had like a little bit of a
little jolt,
like a jolt, like they were calling his name, and he had to be like, "Oh, right,
yeah,
there's another person with him."
Absolutely.
Yeah, like I mean, that was never going to happen. We weren't going to get like a different supporting actor winner at every ceremony, but that's how I would have liked the season to have gone, even if Downey Jr. ended up winning the Oscar.
Sure.
Like Critics' Choice, De Niro, SAG goes to Gosling, and BAFTA goes to Mark Ruffalo. That would have been great.
Yeah, absolutely.
Just mix it up and then give it to Downey Jr. at the end. Fine.
Yeah, there you go. I mean, a little variety. That's all we're asking.
Yeah. But Da'Vine Joy Randolph, I'm totally happy with her just sweeping the whole time. That was a fantastic performance. And if there was going to be one sweep, like she was the one, that made sense to me.
Yep. I have no problem with that either. And while the discourse wasn't nearly as polarizing with Cillian Murphy and Paul Giamatti, and funny enough, because I don't get quite the attention you do on social media, especially when it comes to the Oscars, but I have championed Paul Giamatti throughout this entire season. And every time I do, even though I can't even fathom how much you get this, because I would tweet something about Paul Giamatti, how much I love him. And inevitably, even though the tweet has nothing to do with Cillian Murphy, someone will chime in to be like, oh no, he sucks. Cillian Murphy should win. It's like, I'm not even trying to compare the two.
Let me tell you, I was it December or I think it was December. I put out a tweet that was like, it suggested that, okay, I know everyone loves Cillian Murphy and Oppenheimer, but Bradley Cooper has the showier transformative role in Maestro. So I just be wary, everybody.
Yeah.
Like Cooper might kind of sweep. He might win a Golden Globe and SAG and Oscar. Just be prepared for that maybe happening. And people went at me for days and weeks, and they continued last night after Cillian Murphy won on Twitter. People were retweeting that like 2-month-old, 2.5-month-old Bradley Cooper thing, like, haha, told you so, blah, blah, blah. Like that was gonna like, you know, upset me last. I'm like, okay, I didn't say he was winning. I suggested that maybe he could do well this season. That's all I said. And people went nuts. And I'm like, Jesus, like, calm down. Bradley Cooper is not a villain. I was so sick of that narrative. Like, he wants this Oscar and he's just going to do whatever he can to get it. That every second on set of Maestro, he was just like, I am getting my Oscar.
Yeah.
Of course he wants an Oscar. He's been nominated 12 times. He's been around a while. Like, of course he would love to win. And I'm sure it was disappointing for Cooper to just slowly realize, oh, okay, I'm not winning this season. Like, it's going to Murphy. Okay.
Yeah. Spoiler alert. Like, they all want to win. They all want to win.
Yeah. Murphy,
human.
I think, you know, funnily enough, like I feel like Murphy would have been okay if he had lost to like Giamatti. I don't think Cillian Murphy would have been crying.
No, he wouldn't.
He would have been like, he never seemed to care that much. He was like, oh, I won again, thanks.
Yeah,
there was like, there was that with Murphy that was kind of endearing. Like he could have lost and he would have been fine. Like he was just like, okay. I bet he didn't even enjoy this award season very much. You know, he seems like a very private person. Like you don't really see Cillian Murphy unless he's promoting a movie or something. So I'm sure the last few months have been kind of trying on him. He's like,
I'm sure.
Jesus. I bet he was so thrilled last night. He was like, okay, it's done.
Well,
oh my God.
It's funny you say that because there was a viral tweet today that I loved where it was a photo of him smiling on stage. And it seemed as if he was sighing in relief that this was over.
Yeah.
But the joke was, the tweet was, he's happy now until he realizes he has to come back next year to present.
He has to come back. Well, he doesn't have to. There are some years where they don't come back.
Yeah.
I feel like the last 3 to 4, it's typical that they do come back and present either the opposite like category or like as they did last night, like whatever they won the previous year, they presented that same category. So it depends, but we'll probably see Cillian Murphy come back in a year and he won't be happy about it.
I bet you when you got into this, Brian, you had no idea that you were going to become a sports pundit, but you have. Welcome to the world of sports, because what you're experiencing when you talk about Maestro and Bradley Cooper, that is the mentality. I'm going to send you. I'm going to send you some examples, some tweets of sports reporters tweeting about something, and then the replies, just the nasty replies they get for just stating something could happen. It is remarkable, the symmetry. Remarkable. It'll blow
It doesn't really affect me because I 99% of what I tweet is about Oscar stuff, Oscar history, recent Oscar pieces and things. And yeah, sometimes I'll tweet something that gets a lot of hate and I'm like, oh, okay. And I just move on. I don't really like pay attention to it.
That's where it's born. Man,
I'm like, go to my YouTube channel. If this takes you to my YouTube channel, I'm fine.
Exactly.
You know? Click the link.
Hey, look, they're engaging with you, and that helps with the algorithm. It's perfect.
Yeah, I have people in my YouTube comments will like be hating on me. Like, oh, you called this wrong. You called it like you're so stupid.
Yeah.
You're so boring. Like blah blah. And I'm like, you watched my latest. I've made 255 videos. So like you watched my latest and took the time to comment. So why didn't you just watch it for 3 minutes and say this guy sucks and move on? Like, why are you engaging with my content and then leaving me a comment that says I suck?
Yeah.
I don't understand.
Thanks for the comment. You're just helping me out.
I'm like, it's okay. Like, you don't have to like my stuff. I'll be okay.
Yeah. At any rate, getting down the rabbit hole once again. But it was just funny thinking about that with Paul Giamatti, because I got like
he would have been a great winner. I loved him.
I agree. And that's ultimately why I guess I bring that up. I mean, the vitriol wasn't quite as much, but I did see it. And same with Best Actress. I would have loved either one of them. I did not expect Giamatti to win at all. But I have stated 1,000 times, I think he equally would have been worthy of that Oscar, and I would have loved it. But Cillian Murphy is astounding in Oppenheimer, and I'm thrilled for him. Great win.
Yeah, I think it came. I mean, there were a lot of factors. I think it did help Cillian Murphy that he was just in the best performing movie and he was playing a real life person, whereas Giamatti wasn't in The Holdovers. And when a role is a little bit more comedic, that can be trickier. I just think there were some factors that in the end did help Murphy outside of just a great performance.
Yep, which is understandable, especially when you compare that to Barbie and how it was the other side of that coin. And Margot Robbie doesn't even get nominated because it doesn't have the momentum that you're just talking about there with Oppenheimer. Just Barbenheimer going in completely different directions here.
Yeah, Barbie got the more money, but Oppenheimer got the more Oscar trophies.
The Oscars.
I mean, Barbie couldn't even win costumes. I thought costumes was going to go to Barbie. That felt right to me. I was like, you're overthinking this, Brian. It's not going to be Poor Things. I think Barbie can win that category, and they went with Poor Things. I was like, okay, I guess all Barbie is winning a song. That's all it's good.
Yeah. Well, since we're on costumes here, real quick, I want to take a second to brag because
did you get that right?
No. Well, I predicted costumes. It was one I missed. However, the reason I bring it up is that I went 20 for 23 on the night, which is by far the best I've ever done. That's I don't know if I'll ever repeat that. I did very well. And so I missed costumes.
Okay.
I missed makeup and hairstyling.
Okay.
And then I missed sound because I went with my head instead of my heart. I really wanted to pick Zone of Interest, but everyone was like, no, this is locked up. This is in the bag. And I was like, okay, it makes sense. It's Oppenheimer. So I went with Oppenheimer, even though my heart was telling me Zone of Interest. So I could have had 21.
I would say the one that was really kind of shocking to me was Zone of Interest winning over Oppenheimer in sound, just because Oppenheimer was dominating to such an extent. And the sound work in Oppenheimer is extraordinary. Yes. I just felt like, okay, yes, the sound work in Zone of Interest is also fantastic, but I didn't think it could compete with the dominance of Oppenheimer there. Like usually when you get down to like sound, people are just checking, off like the main movie, Oppenheimer. So that was kind of surprising. I'm like, wow. Yes. I feel bad for the sound designers who were up for that category for Oppenheimer. I bet they were like, seriously?
They
had their speech prepared.
It was the category that got me in trouble because it was obviously like halfway through the night, maybe a little bit more halfway through the night, and my kids were asleep, and I screamed so loud, ironically, I guess, that when Zone of Interest won, that I woke up the baby and my wife, not happy with me in that moment. But I couldn't help myself. I was so excited. One of my favorite wins of the night. And
got a standing ovation.
Yeah. And I think to your point, I think that's why it's one of the most inspired winners we've seen in that category, but maybe in general over the last few years. Just an incredible win, because it would have been easy to just check off Oppenheimer in all of these tech categories because it's Oppenheimer. It's the best film of the year. And the sound work in Oppenheimer truly is deserving. I would have loved that as a winner as well. But there's something about its dominance in the night that for the voters to still go, okay, let's pause here. As great as Oppenheimer is, the sound in the Zone of Interest is at the nucleus of its core and so pivotal to the film that I have to award Zone of Interest. Like, just to have that, I guess, ethos as they were voting it is inspired voting. And I for one, deeply appreciate it. It was an incredible win. I absolutely loved it.
It makes me happy that like enough Academy voters watch the Zone of Interest.
Yeah.
You could also argue, like, I bet more people just in general, Academy voters, saw Oppenheimer more than they did the Zone of Interest. Not every Academy member sees everything. So like enough people saw Zone of Interest for it to get more votes in the category than Oppenheimer. I was like, oh, okay, that makes me feel better about
let me
Academy voting practices.
All right, guys, let's talk about coffee. It's a drink that we all live on. I love it. You love it. We need it. And that's why we love Coffee Cult, because they source specialty grade coffee from all over the world. It's great. And they source specialty grade coffee, the top 2 specialty grade coffee specifically in the world. So what we're talking about is the best of the best. There are some coffee companies that will purposefully make lesser than coffee because they want you to buy milk and sugar and chocolate and all of these things that make up a coffee drink, because, you know, there's moolah involved with all of that. However, you don't need that for a great coffee. A great coffee, a specialty grade coffee, will have these exquisite notes of either chocolate or nuts on their own. If it's, you know, a darker roast, perhaps like a Sumatra coffee, or it could have these flora and citrus and fruity notes like the Ethiopian Harar, which is one of my favorites. I've always described that coffee as drinking a blueberry muffin. The blueberry and strawberry notes are so strong, it's insane. It's incredible how delicious that coffee is. And I absolutely love it. So regardless of what your palate is, Coffee Cult has plenty to offer. It's all ethically sourced. It's roasted to order. It's not just sitting around in some warehouse getting stale. They wait for your order to come in, then they roast the coffee and they ship it to you. So every bag is extremely fresh, guaranteed every single time. If you go to coffeecult.com right now, that's coffee with a K, cult with a K, coffeecult.com. Use our code ISF and you'll get 15% off. Again, that code is ISF and you'll get 15% off. That's coffeecult.com, and we thank them for their support. All right, let's talk about t-shirts and merchandise, because we have it, and we have some new t-shirts that I'm going to unveil right here. We are, of course, talking about the Oscars. And earlier, you heard me rant about Best Actress and what I despise as it relates to awards and the sports mentality that often comes with it. So we have a new t-shirt right now. You know it. It's the line, "Stop Turning Art into Sports." And there's actually a couple of different versions because I couldn't figure out which one I liked the best. I kind of like both of them, and they come in green and gold versions. So there's a couple of different versions that you can check out with this design. Stop turning art into sports. I love it. So go and check it out. Support the show and support this cause of getting rid of the sports mentality when it comes to the Oscars. We don't need it. So this is a fun little t-shirt. I really like. I hope you guys enjoy it. But also we have Dune-inspired In Session Film Podcast t-shirts as well. So it'll say the In Session Film Podcast in the Dune font. If you want to go and check that out for those listening. If you're on YouTube, of course, I will put up an example for you to see it there. But yeah, we have some new t-shirts, some new designs for you to go and check out, whether it be Dune, hyping in on the Dune sandworm train, or Stop Turning Art into Sports. Or if you want to go back to what I've mentioned many times on the show before, we have the t-shirt. The best thing that ever happened to La La Land is that it lost Best Picture to Moonlight. I still firmly believe that. So you can get that t-shirt as well. No matter what you like, we have plenty available. Of course, we have other In Session Film designs, Star Wars Barbie inspired designs, our logo, and all kinds of forms. So go check that out at tpublic.com/store/InSessionFilm, or you can just go to InSessionFilm.com/store. Either way, you'll get to our storefront there, and that's InSessionFilm.com/store, or you can go directly to TeePublic at tpublic.com/store/InSessionFilm, and we thank you for your support. Well, I also wanted to ask you this, Brian, because the Zone of Interest obviously wins for sound, and then it dominates international feature. And there was some talk about how it was building some momentum. Could it compete in other categories? And look, Cord Jefferson was not going to lose Adapted, but do you think that there was ever a possibility that it was maybe going to be more competitive based off of what we saw earlier in the night?
That was thrown out as a possibility. Like adapted screenplay was all over the place. A lot of people said, well, it could be Barbie. Like Greta Gerwig and Noah Baumbach have never won. So people were predicting that. People were predicting that Nolan would win adapted screenplay for Oppenheimer. And, just be kind of a sweep. He gets screenplay and director and picture. And then Zone of Interest. I mean, there was talk like, Jonathan Glazer does not personally win an Oscar in international feature, even though he gave a speech last night. Jonathan Glazer did not go home with a gold trophy. So he has not technically won an Oscar, even though he spoke. So that would have given him an actual win for that movie. It just came down to American Fiction was the one winning things throughout the season, so that it was hard to predict anything else. But yeah, I bet some part of me wonders if the Zone of Interest was closer to American Fiction and adapted screenplay than we think.
Yeah,
maybe.
I was wondering about that as well. So, but yeah, Cord Jefferson winning, I don't mind that at all as well. I really
love that one. That's a great
one. The writing was great. Yeah, absolutely. So. And again, I still think it's quite humorous. I know we talked about this on the predictions episode, but it going up against Zone, Poor Things, which ended up doing very well on the night as well. So in hindsight, maybe it's even more humorous. And then Barbenheimer, and yet that category was still never even close.
And then Poor Things too, I feel like should have been more competitive in adapted screenplay. That's a fantastic script. How did that never win any major prizes? The script, that's weird to me. It's not just
hitters there.
Emma Stone. Emma Stone is the star of the movie, and she's the reason to see it. She's amazing, but it starts with that screenplay. That's what gives her the character and the performance she gives. So
absolutely,
I was kind of bummed that the Poor Things script didn't get any prizes.
Yeah,
it was kind of weird how some of these things played out.
It is.
Oppenheimer is the front runner; it's winning everything, but not screenplay.
Yeah,
just some of these things were kind of strange. Okay,
well, and here's the thing, I do think the writing in Oppenheimer is very good, and it is dialogue driven. Obviously, there's a ton of dialogue. It's visually driven at times as well, which is what makes Oppenheimer so dense and incredible. It really is an incredible movie all around. However, that's what I love about the editing win. I've talked about this before on the show, and I want to say we brought this up quite a bit at the In Session Film Awards, that there's an argument to be made that the best single individual craft of the year is the editing in Oppenheimer. For a film that is 3 hours long, but goes by with this incredible assiduousness. To me, it doesn't ever feel like it's 3 hours long. There's a lot of story to be told, but it moves rapidly enough that you're drawn into what's happening. It doesn't feel like it's moving too fast though. And it gives some scenes room to breathe. It gives Cillian Murphy room to breathe. And the editing in that film is just astounding. It is an incredible achievement, and one of the big reasons I think Nolan ends up winning his Oscar at the end of the day. So, the writing in Oppenheimer I do think is great, but I think maybe even more vitally it's the editing that makes that film what it is, which is why American Fiction winning it over an Oppenheimer, I understand from that perspective, I guess I
really love the writing prizes this year. American Fiction and Anatomy of a Fall
Fall
is another fantastic
awesome
win.
win.
I love
Awesome
those
win.
movies, and in both films, that was the only prize I got was in screenplay. So I was really happy there too.
And how did we talk about the ceremony earlier and not mention Messi? How adorable was that? Oh,
I love the clap.
I know. I wanted that job.
That was the biggest laugh of the night.
That was so good. Yeah,
I thought so. I found out today, so that was shot before the ceremony even started. It was pre-recorded, and there was a guy under the seat and I knew it wasn't really his boss, but I thought maybe it was happening in the moment because it was just cutting to different reactions of people in the audience.
It was seamless. They did a good job of making
that. Was really good. It felt like there were 3 rows of people around Messi doing the clapping. It felt like it was happening in the moment, and it wasn't. So that was pretty great.
So good. Yeah, I love that moment.
Messi
as well.
should have won something.
I
Like,
know.
Messi should have gone on stage. I mean, Al Pacino did such a terrible job announcing Best Picture. They should have had Messi do it and just put like subtitles or something.
And by bad, you mean awesome. I loved that moment.
No, that was no. No, it was like, okay, one, you say the 10 titles one more time, like you give the titles, and then you say, and the winner is Oppenheimer. You don't say, my eyes see Oppenheimer.
It was
Emma Thomas,
funny.
and then like the awkward, like nothing's happening for 5 seconds, and then okay, and then people start standing. It was so weird.
I mean, I tweeted about it earlier today. I could not stop watching and laughing at that moment. It is so good. Like he walks up there utterly clueless, like just no idea what is happening. He wasn't coached, or if he was coached, he immediately forgot what he was supposed to do. And walks up there, to your point, doesn't even mention the other nominees. Just like, oh my god, this card. My IC Oppenheimer. Just
He did. I read something today. He did like that was not his choice. Like they said, we're not going to read the titles because they've been revealed throughout the whole ceremony.
Yes, they kind of.
We'd come back from break and we'd see like a clip, a montage. But I've always felt you should still just take 20-25 seconds and just kind of like go through the titles one more time with a picture.
Yeah.
Like it gives a little, I mean, we knew Oppenheimer was winning, but just like it gives it a little bit more gravitas instead of just reading weird, like something came out of his mouth. And then Nolan's like, oh, okay. Standing up. It was kind of anticlimactic.
It was. And from that perspective, I very much do agree, especially if you're Oppenheimer. Now it's not nearly as awkward as Moonlight, for example, but you could tell that there was an immediate reservation of what's going on here. Like, did we win? Like, what's happening? And I think it's because you expect him to read off the nominees or for them to show.
It's the biggest prize of the night.
Absolutely.
It should be a bigger deal.
And I think at the very least, I agree with you. You don't have to overly complicate it, but at least read off the nominees, because while you and I know the 10 very well, most of America watching might not know all 10 movies, and they might not have been paying attention throughout the entire ceremony, especially because they play some of the, like those montages we had seen throughout the night. You're doing it coming back from break or immediately after announcing an award or whatever it may be. And so like not everyone is in the room when those things are playing. And so you might like to just recap and list the 10 again in case, you know, you're not as familiar with it, just so everyone is aware of what's at play there. To me, that would be the smart move instead of pandering to the JD and Bryans of the world. That like, and like you said, it's what, 25 seconds to do that, 30 seconds at most to just read off the 10 nominees. And then you can open the card.
Yeah. Every Best Picture presenter should learn from Jane Fonda in 2020. And the Oscar goes to, and then that long pause, and she kind of smiles and looks out. Parasite. That's how you announce Best Picture.
Yeah, exactly.
Not just talking through your mouth hole, which is like, what are you saying, Al Pacino?
No,
like, make this moment count.
No, I agree. In terms of making it count, it was anticlimactic, and I do feel bad for Nolan and the team of Oppenheimer because they looked confused immediately. Now, from a comedic perspective, I was dying.
But it is funny.
Laughed so hard. It was so good. And but you know, I guess it's a double-edged sword. I
mean, it's fine. At the, you know, in the weeks and months to come, no one will really think about that. It'll just be, oh, Oppenheimer won Best Picture. That's all that matters in the end.
I agree, but we can still laugh at Al Pacino in that little moment. I think we'll have the best of both worlds.
I was bummed because I heard that Michelle Pfeiffer was going to present, and I think someone said it was going to be a Scarface reunion between Pfeiffer and Pacino for Best Picture. And then I read this morning that there was some sort of family emergency. Something came up and she couldn't go.
She couldn't go.
And I'm like, would have helped Pacino. Like he would have started rambling on, and she would have grabbed the envelope, and she would have announced.
Yes.
clearly Oppenheimer.
Yeah, exactly.
Come on, Michelle. We need you there
Uh,
next
Well, her family emergency. Hope everything is okay, whatever it may be.
Yeah.
But it certainly sparked a moment of comedic gold that I do appreciate, at the very
Yeah.
least. I need to talk about best animated feature because again, gonna brag here, absolutely called this. I picked The Boy and the Heron. I stuck to my guns, even though everyone said I was crazy. And
I always
and
thought it was
ended up-
close.
It was close. No, it was.
I was really on the fence. I didn't know which one to go with, and I said, you know what? The best animated feature winner at PGA, the Producers Guild Awards, has gone on to win the Oscar every year in this category for a decade. So I said, I don't really know. I mean, they're both at the same level, so I'll just go with what wins there. Spider-Man won at PGA, and I was like, yeah, that makes sense. It's the bigger film. It's like the bigger blockbuster. It's great.
Mhm.
I think the Oscars, like with the 10,000 voter, like they'll go with Spider-Man. That makes sense to me. And
Yeah.
then they said Boy and the Heron. I was like, oh, okay. It was a BAFTA year. Like everything that won a BAFTA outside of visual effects just won at the Oscars. So if you had followed BAFTA to a T, you would have done very well.
Exactly, you would have. After going 0 for 8 last year, which is again what makes that dichotomy interesting. But
that was an anticlimax too, because he wasn't there. So it just
he wasn't there.
It was like Wes Anderson winning.
Exactly. I wanted to get to that here in a second as well. Like two of my favorite wins of the night was Wes Anderson finally getting his Oscar and Hayao Miyazaki getting his second. Neither of them were there to give it a speech of any kind. But no, I love The Boy and the Heron, even though Across the Spider-Verse obviously equally worthy of winning that Oscar. That was in my top 10 of the year. I love Across the Spider-Verse, but there's something about The Boy and the Heron that seems poetic to me. This might be the last opportunity to recognize Hayao Miyazaki. He says that he's going to make another movie, but we don't really know what that means or what that process, will entail, because he retired after The Wind Rises, then comes back for this a decade later. Who knows? He's retired like 7 times. We never know with Hayao Miyazaki. But maybe more importantly to that, even if he does come back, that film is a Miyazaki buffet. It is representative of his legacy. And in a very literal way, he is wrestling with his legacy in that movie. And so for him to go out, so to speak, with that film, with The Boy and the Heron, and for him to win the Oscar for it, I just think is profoundly moving and very poetic. So that's why I was championing The Boy and the Heron, even if of the two, I might ever so slightly, by a thin margin, prefer Across the Spider-Verse. But they're both great films, and I would have been happy either way. But I'm really happy for Miyazaki here.
Yeah, I think what hurt Spider-Man in the end is it is like the second chapter of a trilogy. And I was thinking about it. I was like, it did also come out it came out last June. Like it came out a while ago.
Yeah, very early.
And then Boy and the Heron was like right at the end of the year. It was a little bit more like in people's faces, like during award season than Spider-Man was. I do think if like the release dates have been flipped, like if Spider-Man had come out like Christmas and Boy and the Heron had opened in June, July, like I do think that might have played a role too, that Spider-Man came out a little early, but I don't know.
Yeah, no, I think that's very fair. But I still think it's impressive because, and I know that things have changed quite a bit since 2016 when they've opened up the Academy a little bit more, but that category has been dominated by Disney and Pixar for so long that few animated films outside of their wheelhouse have won that award. And even though Into the Spider-Verse won previously, I mean, Spirited Away is the only non-American movie to win that award, right? Unless I'm misremembering.
I
know
Wallace
that
and Gromit, is that American? That was 05.
that was UK. That might be UK.
But it's mostly Disney.
It's mostly
throughout
Disney.
the 20 plus
Anyway,
years.
the point is it's mostly American animated films, and it's mostly Disney and Pixar specifically. So like I've always been a little cynical about animated. Like, I need to see it to believe it. And so when Into the Spider-Verse 1, it's like, okay, we're expanding a little bit here, and that was a worthy winner. And then coming into this year, it was like I was still holding on to that cynicism a little bit, but really hoping that Miyazaki would come out on top. And now that he has, it's made that category, I think, more invigorating. So, moving forward, maybe it'll be a little bit more open, which I think is very exciting.
Yeah.
So, I mean, the
I'm
fact that
curious
Robot
what-
Dreams got nominated is evidence of that, I think.
I'm curious why he couldn't be there. I wonder if there was like, is he older? Like, is he not able to travel?
Well,
Like
he's
he
certainly-
could have, he should have known he could have won for Boy and the Heron. Like, it would have been really great if he had gone up to the stage. Imagine the standing O, the moment that would have been amazing.
Yeah.
It's too bad.
So my guess, I have not read anything specifically. Now, part of it is, I mean, he's in his 80s, like in his mid 80s,
Okay.
I believe.
Right.
So he is older, but the last time that he boycotted the Oscars for Spirited Away, I'm trying to remember which movie
Yeah, it was for the Iraq War, I read.
Yeah, for the Iraq War. It's possible that because of world conflict right now, that
right.
he boycotted again. It certainly could be because of that. And of course, America's involvement in said conflict.
Gotcha.
So that wouldn't surprise me as well if that was his reasoning. But I don't know if he stated specifically. I don't know. He might have. I really don't know.
Maybe he just thought Spider-Man's going to win. I'm not going to bother traveling.
Yeah, I'm 85 years old. I'm not traveling all the way to Los Angeles for that. Like, I totally get it. And then for a documentary, 20 Days of Mariupol, pretty standard win there,
Yeah,
I think.
good
I think
win.
We all knew that was happening. Like that movie.
Mm-hmm.
Oppenheimer winning for score. Again, no surprise there, but love Ludwig. And that again, for me.
You were rooting for John Williams. I don't think he was even there. I didn't see him.
Yeah.
Spielberg was there, but I didn't
and he's
see,
he's 90, so he also did the Hayao Miyazaki. I'm not even bothering. I'm not gonna win.
Yeah, he's nominated almost every year the last few years for Star Wars and for the Fablemans, and he's typically there, but I did not see him last night.
Yeah, look,
I think he knew he wasn't winning that one.
I love John Williams. He is goated for a reason, but you don't have to nominate him for everything. I promise. It's okay. He'll be fine. It's perfectly fine. You don't need to nominate the other four. I thought were great nominations though.
Yeah, I'm curious what Diane Warren's going to be nominated for next year. Like, what random ass movie that goes to Hulu in April, May is she going to get nominated for?
Yeah, but no one comes at her like Bradley Cooper, and yet she's been dying to win this award for forever.
It's kind of it's so interesting because I thought about doing a video about her once. People said you should do an elusive Oscar video where you touch on, which is about a series about people who've never won.
Yeah.
And it was just so overwhelming. There's like 15 I'm like, I can't, like, this would take me this would take 3 weeks. I'm not doing it.
Oh, I know.
Like,
I mean,
but she had some nominations, and then there's like this long gap of like almost 15 years, like from like 2002 to like the mid 2010s of no nominations. And then since like 2014, 2015, somewhere around there, it's like almost every year she's been nominated since.
Well, I have a solution here. I have a solution
for random movie.
Yeah, I know. So my solution here is coming up soon. There's at some point there's going to be another Bond movie.
We need to get Diane Warren a competitive Oscar. So
Diane Warren on whatever this new Bond is. Get her involved. Have her write the song and guaranteed win, because that seems to be the trend over the last decade or so.
Because Diane Warren's sitting there, she's on like nomination 15 or whatever it is, and she's watching Billie Eilish win her second Oscar in song, and she's 22. Like, what is Diane Warren thinking in that? What is Diane Warren thinking in that moment?
I know. Like, what do I got to do? I've written iconic songs for movies for years, and she's got
to get a great song in a movie people have seen. I think that's what hurts her every year. Yeah. It's like the most random movie every year, That's
Yeah,
the nomination.
because
And it's like
look,
she needs to get a song in a more popular film. That would
yeah,
help.
yeah, nothing against Flamin' Hot.
Flame,
Was
which I
fine, I
watched,
guess. Yeah,
and it was like so middle of the road you couldn't
Y-
believe it.
yeah,
It
exactly.
wasn't bad. It was just
Yeah,
kind of there,
just kind of
and
there.
you forget about it the next day, and that's it.
Yeah. I honestly, I didn't even know there was a song until people started talking. Like I had to go back and listen to it retroactively. That's
I
how
just
middling the movie
it
is.
doesn't that is one aspect of like Oscar nominations. Like it doesn't sit well with me that okay, so like in song, you can basically just like I mean, because it feels like people are just nominating Diane Warren because like she's friends with a lot of people in the industry. I got
Mhm.
like, and they just year to year just keep nominating her for these random movies, these songs that are never going to win, and I just don't understand like what the purpose of it is. Like
Mhm.
if she's not going to win on nomination 15, how about we hold off and like wait for her to do a great song in a big movie, and
I,
then
I
let's give it to her. I don't know.
I agree. I agree. And that's why again, like I love John Williams, but do we have to nominate him for The Book Thief? Probably not.
Oh, that one's fine.
I'm not saying it's a bad score. I just don't know if it's Oscar worthy. You know, like he's nominated all the time, and much of the time it is deserving. Don't get me wrong, but it just feels, especially recently, it just feels like every other one is like, why are we here? Why are we doing this?
I just think it's funny that because of Schindler's List, which he won for in '94,
Mhm.
he did not get an Oscar nomination for his score to Jurassic Park, which is one of his 5 most iconic scores in
Iconic.
movies ever. He's gotten
Yeah.
like 53, 54 nominations, whatever it is. And it's like one of those 50 plus nominations is not Jurassic Park. That is weird.
Wow, that is wild. Absolutely wild. But yeah, at any rate, I do love both of them. But I'm just saying they don't have to be here every year. That's all I'm saying. That's all I'm saying. Any other categories? What are
We didn't
missing?
mention visual effects. I got that
Visual. Oh
wrong.
yeah,
I went
Godzilla.
with the creator. I just thought, you know what? They're not going to pick Godzilla for an Oscar. I just didn't buy it. Everyone was saying that it was going to go to Godzilla, and I thought it had a shot, but I just thought the creator feels to me like more of an Oscar-y movie. The visual
Mhm.
effects are incredible all the way through. And I just like, I don't know, like I'm not buying this Godzilla thing. So that's one I
Yeah,
missed, and
yeah,
I'm still kind of like, okay, why did I not go with Godzilla? Because it was the passion vote. I just think people
yeah,
loved that movie versus the creator, which everyone was kind of
yeah.
ho hum about. I think that's what
Yeah, that's what
Godzilla
I
to win
was
in the end.
100%. I think that's you know what it was for me because I was thinking about this, and who knows, I may be wrong. You're more in this world than I am, but I like what you were talking about earlier in terms of Barbie. While great, it didn't carry momentum. It just
Hmm.
you know people didn't think of it as highly as some of these others, and you know you when you take that idea to this category, even in the creator is not nearly as good as what Barbie is in terms of its craft. Now the visual effects alone though are great,
Yeah.
very 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 good, but the film on the whole is kind of middling and certainly didn't get the reaction that Godzilla minus one did, which obviously got a huge reaction. So again, I sit here today and say, well, maybe the lesson to be learned is, hey, where the pop, you know, whatever the momentum is, that one was very popular. Maybe that's where you go. And but you know, next year the story could be completely different.
Yeah,
Who
I've
knows?
learned. I mean, we probably already know it's winning next year. It's probably going to be Dune.
Doing, yeah, doing it for sure.
But I've learned in the years to come, I'm like, okay, Brian, if visual effects is not clear and there are 2 possibilities and there's like pros and cons to both, in visual effects, Brian, go with the movie people love more. That's what
Yeah,
I've decided moving forward.
I think that's a great idea. Yeah, absolutely. And that was very much my mentality when I picked it. And I mean, I could have been looking foolish at the end of the day, but I was very happy that when Godzilla and the
Boy
Boy
and the
and the
Heron.
Heron one, I was like, oh my gosh, I might actually do well with these predictions. And then I was mad at myself I didn't go with the zone of interest and sound, even though I really wanted to. At any rate, I mean,
Did you get makeup right? Did you get makeup Poor Things?
So I got makeup wrong. I picked
okay.
Maestro, I believe, for that.
I don't like God. That was like for the longest time, I'm like, Maestro has faded. Like, is it gonna win
Yeah.
makeup? I felt like the quality of the makeup in the movie, I just felt like that would carry the day. Whereas
Yeah.
Poor Things, I felt like if we're just looking at like Emma Stone, like there's not any like prosthetics on her face. It's just the Willem Dafoe character. Whereas Maestro, that's like the movie is like the physical transformation of
Yeah,
both
I agree.
Cooper and Mulligan. So I'm
Unless
still
the
kind of
hair
like
is part of it. I don't know.
I think Maestro lost because people just don't like that movie very
Yeah,
much. I think
I
that's
agree.
what killed it in the end.
Yeah, they liked it enough to nominate it
Because
for all of
I
these.
feel like that should have won.
Yeah,
But when
I
Poor
don't disagree.
Things won, makeup 2 years ago went to Eyes of Tammy Faye. Jessica Chastain won Best Actress. Last year, makeup went to The Whale, and then Brendan Fraser won Best Actor. When Poor Things won makeup, I went, I think it might be Emma Stone. And it was.
That's very fair. That's a good point. Yeah.
And in the 80s, makeup was for like horror films, like The Fly and American Werewolf in London won makeup in the 80s. And now it's like this big award that tells us who's going to win a major acting prize, which is kind of weird.
Yeah, it's kind of evolved. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I mean, I kind of wish horror would be more involved in that. I think there's
Mhm.
still plenty of opportunity for it to be in best makeup and hairstyling and some of these other tech in all of these categories, really. But yeah, I mean, so I went with Maestro there, and then the other one I missed, as I mentioned earlier, was production design.
Oh, you missed that one?
No, not production. I got that one. I missed costumes because I went with Barbie.
You went Barbie.
You play dress up with Barbie. It's all about the costumes. It made sense to me, but
Yeah, I mean, still now, a day later, I still think like if they had said Barbie for costume, that would have made sense to me.
Yeah,
I mean,
the
I'm like,
costumes
wow,
are awesome.
it showed the strength of Poor Things very early in the ceremony. Like winning all three of those, I went, okay,
Yeah, I
Emma
agree.
Stone might have them.
Exactly. And so then people were talking about the runner up being, if not Oppenheimer, then Poor Things is two here.
Yeah,
Probably.
I think Oppenheimer, with all said and done, especially with Stone winning Best Actress, ultimately, I do think Poor Things was in second place in Best Picture.
Yeah. And then I guess speaking of Oppenheimer, we haven't mentioned Hoyte van Hoytema, but
Great
worthy
win,
of mentioning
cinematography.
him as well. Incredible cinematography there. But that one wasn't.
That
really
was not
close
a hard
either.
one to call.
Yeah, that was pretty easy. Yeah, pretty easy one.
If there was one below the line, Oppenheimer was winning. It was cinematography for sure.
Yeah, but I think maybe that's why Best Sound just sticks out to me because throughout this whole conversation and really throughout this whole award season, we're like Oppenheimer is going to dominate in these categories, and come Oscar night, it pretty much did, except for sound. That was the one surprise, but it's just funny to me. Like Oppenheimer was just a monster all year, just an absolute.
But keep in mind, Oppenheimer got 13 Oscar nominations. It only won 7.
7 of them.
That's not dominating. I mean, that's 6 losses.
No, yeah,
It could have done better.
To rephrase that, the categories in which not all of them, but most of them, like where it won, those races were pretty much locked up.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, you make a great point though. I mean, it only won half of its crop, so and I guess I kind of like that. Like I saw a stat that, and maybe you know this more than me, I don't know, but I think I saw something that only 3 films won multiple Oscars. And
Was it only 3?
That might not be right. I thought I saw that earlier today. I was very busy. I did not have time to really delve into it, but I saw that and I was like, if that's true, that's interesting to me.
Yeah, I mean, when going through the categories, that does make sense. I mean, so yeah, Oppenheimer got 7, Poor Things got 4. And then everything else I'm thinking of got 1. I'm trying to think, what was the movie that got 2? I'm going through my head, like I'm trying to remember, like American Fiction won, Anatomy of a Fall won. Zone of Interest.
Yeah.
Yep, Zone of Interest got International Feature and Sound.
Yeah.
I think you're right. I think those are the only 3 that got more than 1.
So yeah, I thought that was interesting and all pretty great winners. I mean, I don't really have many complaints about this year. I thought it, like a few nominees here and there I could nitpick to death, but I thought the nominations were mostly great. The winners were very good. The ceremony was good. All things considered.
And one more shout out for Past Lives, my favorite film of the
Yep.
year. Of course, didn't win anything. It never really
Mhm.
was. I mean, it had a very outside shot in screenplay, I guess, but once Anatomy of a Fall kept winning in that category, it was kind of over. But for the rest of time, Past Lives is an Oscar nominee for Best Picture, and I love that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it was a great year. I loved Past Lives. That was my number 2 of the year, just behind Oppenheimer.
Nice.
Yeah, I loved 2023. I thought it might be the best year, top to bottom, in the in-session film era. Maybe I'd have to really, I guess, look at that a little bit further, but it might be. Like I think it's a great year. It could go down as an all-timer.
I
I
struggle
thought it
with
was
that a little
excellent.
bit because I feel like every year we get great films and I just kind of concentrate
Yeah.
on the great stuff that I see. So,
Yeah.
but I do agree. I feel like more often than not, 2023 was giving us some wonderful films. I mean,
Yeah.
my weekend at the Telluride Film Festival last Labor Day weekend, I mean, it was like, most of what I saw went on to get Oscar nominations,
Yeah.
and some of these films I was seeing like back to back in the same day, and it was
Yeah.
it was kind of overwhelming.
No.
I mean, there were some
Yeah.
great movies we got in 2023.
For sure. And I guess when I say that, I really speak to the depth of the quality of 2023, because you're right. Every year, the top end of it is always going to be great. It's like my top tens, I could debate that all day. 2023, 2019, 2013, like, whatever the year is, those top 10 and maybe even top 20 are always going to be debatable.
Mhm.
For me, it's the depth of it. I haven't experienced the year doing in session film where the depth was what it was in 2023. It seemed endless to me. I have films I don't usually do a top 50. I easily had a top 50 this year. And my movies in my 25 through 30, I could substitute those in my 11 through 20 and not lose sleep. Great movies, absolutely fantastic. I just thought the depth this year was more noticeable than usual, at least for me. It was
Absolutely.
awesome year though. All right. Well, I think we've covered it. Do you have any final thoughts on the Oscars this year?
It's kind of surreal that it's over. I made about 8,000 prediction videos between like September and now, and then it's like the whole show's over in 3.5 hours, and then you have a couple days to kind of reflect, and I'm
Yeah.
making a couple videos about my thoughts and things. But
Mhm.
I feel good. I feel like the timing was right. Like it was time for the Oscars to happen, and I feel very happy about the wins and the show. And I'm not
Mhm.
ready to think about next year yet. Like I'm going to take a couple months and
Yeah,
just
take
do
a
some
little
like
break.
history videos and
Yeah.
just take a break. I am not going to look forward outside of maybe one fun video in April. I might like do a little
Mhm.
teaser, but
Sure.
like until at least can in May, it's kind of like now we can all relax for a couple months.
Just chill, relax for a few months. I totally hear you on that. Well, that's very exciting. I'm definitely going to join you in that. Yeah, my last final thought on this, I just want to reiterate what I said earlier. I hope that we can celebrate these winners and these nominees. That's what the Oscars is for. It's supposed to be a celebration of the year in movies. It is not a sports competition. We need to stop treating it like it's a sports competition. It's not. It's okay. You can like multiple nominees in the same. You can love all of the nominees in the same category. You can champion all of the nominees in a specific category. It's okay. You're allowed to do that with art, which is very exciting. You can do that with sports. It's a little weird with sports, but you can do that with sports too. But with art, it's not sports. I hope we stop treating it like it is. But until I see that dissipate, I can't help but maybe feel a little cynical, going back to that conversation earlier, which is why I think in 2024, I'm going to go to the Brian Rowe School of Social Media. I'm just not going to look for it. I'm just going to ignore
You'll be
it
better off.
altogether and be better off. At any rate, thanks, Brian, for being here, man. This was a lot of fun. Really appreciate you.
Yeah, of course. Always happy to be here.
As we wind down, tell us about your channel, all the work that you do. Where can we find you on social media, my friend?
Yeah, so check out my YouTube channel. It's called The Awards Contender. I have anywhere from like 2 to 3 new videos every week. I do retrospectives. In the coming months, I'm going to do mostly history videos about old Oscar races. And I am doing a video about why did May December flop so hard at the Oscars. That's the one I'm working on right now.
Man, that one's going to be a heartbreaker.
It only got that one original screenplay nomination, and it was doing really well at the beginning of the award season. Charles Melton was winning things, and then it just kind of went off a cliff. So I'm exploring like what happened there. So yeah, I make a lot of fun Oscar videos at the Awards Contender on YouTube and on social media. You can find me like on Twitter and Instagram and certain places, but Twitter is where I'm most active, and that's at Mr. Brian Rowe, Mr. Brian Rowe. Yeah, please go give him a follow. Awesome dude. Really appreciate your work, Brian. It was great to be on this journey with you all season, and to hear your thoughts. It was a pleasure, my friend. Looking forward to what the new year brings. Off to an interesting start with Dune. I imagine we'll be talking about Dune this time next year in some capacity. Oh my God, the whole year. Yeah.
Yeah, all year. Looking forward to that. Want to say a big thank you to our patrons, our VIP subscribers, however you support the show, whether that be Patreon or a YouTube membership or Apple Podcast subscriptions, however you support us. Really do appreciate that. We should have a bonus content episode out this week. I'm not sure when that will drop, but it'll be out this week, so you can be on the lookout for that. Speaking of the Oscars, though, Shadon and Erica are 2 new lovely hosts for Chasing the Gold. They will have a new episode out as well, talking about the Oscars, so you can go and check that out. There's a new Women in Session episode where they talked about the 1989 Best Picture race, which was a lot of fun. You can go and listen to that. That is available right now, and they'll have a new episode out this week. If you want to follow us on social media, you can do that. Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Letterboxd. Just search In Session Film. You can email us insessionfilm@gmail.com. If you're watching on YouTube, you can subscribe to the channel, like the video, all that fun stuff. You can leave a comment below. Even if you hate us, it's okay. We'll take the comment. The engagement really helps out the show. If you're listening on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, please rate and review us there. Really do appreciate that as well. Okay, before we get out of here, Brian, any final thoughts on anything before we get out of here?
Go touch some grass, everybody.
You know what? That is a beautiful sentiment. I will echo that. Yes. Yes, touch grass. Oh my goodness. I don't think anything else needs to be said. Yes. Get some fresh air, calm down. It'll be okay. It'll be okay. We're all living, we're breathing. It's fine. It's great. Life is good. At any rate, thanks for listening, everybody. Thanks for watching. We'll see you all next time on the In Session Film Podcast. I liked Emma Stone. I did. She's great.